So then the other part of the overview of media history that's presented in the first chapter of the book is this kind of foundation for how we're going to be thinking about media overall in the course of studying individual mediums throughout the course of the semester, is these two spatial metaphors that kind of map onto or correspond with different periods in time in how cultural products like media have been thought about. And so there's a lot to unpack there, right? Spatial metaphors, meaning we use like ideas about things or space, like physical objects, as kind of a figurative or non-literal way to understand something else. In this case, attitudes about cultural products. And these two are culture as a skyscraper and culture as a map. And here's what culture as a skyscraper looks like. Hopefully this helps to make it more intelligible. So you see up here in this bracket, it says high culture and then low culture down there, right? You're probably not going to be familiar with some or many of the things that are on this sort of list in the skyscraper, but you might look into a couple of them if you're not familiar with them and try to figure out sort of what is it that means that, that makes some of them show up here in this like high culture bracket area, and the ones down here, what do they mean by that they're in the low culture area? The metaphor of culture as a skyscraper is the idea that cultural products can be divided into so-called high and low registers depending on sort of the level of refinement associated with them. Are they hard to understand? Do you have to be like really smart to understand them? Do you have to have specialized knowledge or kind of ability to decode them? Or are they sort of lowest common denominator? Do they appeal to everybody, to the masses? Are they sort of do they require less refined sensibilities to understand and appreciate? And so this idea is, the book is not endorsing the idea that you should split culture into these sort of two categories, right? What it's saying is this has been a way, especially like in, more than 50 years ago, that culture has been thought about, that, your level of social refinement and class, even maybe, or at least education and sophistication, is reflected in the kinds of media products or cultural products more generally that you consume or that you're the term we'd use today is a fan of. And this attitude actually sort of persists into the present. There are still people, and it kind of seeps into our way of thinking about things, I think generally sometimes, who still hold on to this idea that, like, for instance, this book over here is it's from a couple decades ago, but the idea is essentially television rots your brain. And you've heard this cliche probably about maybe more recently about different kinds of media. And there's a sort of similar theme in this book, The Cult of the Amateur, as you can see in the tagline, how today's internet is killing our culture. And not sure that that's the case, but Andrew Keaton thinks so. In contrast, we can think about culture as a map, as maybe an arguably more contemporary and different spatial metaphor through which to understand culture and in the media, sort of what media reflects about, our tastes and, who consumes them. So culture as a map is the idea. I'm just going to flip to the visual slide. It's easier to see that basically, instead of high and low, different cultural products occupy different kinds of qualities, or they embody different kinds of qualities simultaneously. So these intersections or junctures on the map, like it's sort of like a subway map, are color-coded over here. And take a look, see if you can figure out what they mean by these sort of combinations. That, for instance, something like TV dramas can be familiar and unfamiliar, comforting and challenging all at the same time. In reality, it's not so much that, media and cultural products are like either sophisticated or unsophisticated. It's that there's going to be many different sort of aspects of them that look different to different kinds of people. And they can be both, for instance, challenging as well as familiar and comforting maybe at the same time.